Okay, so our last speaker, before we can kind of dive into getting to your questions, is Tria Donaldson. She's an experienced organizer. She has been working on everything from Aboriginal rights, access to education, childcare, anti-racism, and the environment. She studied print journalism at Thompson Rivers University and has a broad range of experience using traditional and social media tools. She's also a contributing columnist at Rabble and the Georgia Straight. She currently does work for the Wilderness Committee, which is great. We did their website. We love that.
It's a great website.
Thank you. And a little bit, you know, back and forth. They're great. And right now, she's also the communications coordinator at leadnow.ca, which is a national online advocacy organization responsible for the vote mob phenomena. And she's going to talk about that today. Tria, over to you.
Okay.
Do you need anyone to drive? Okay.
Maybe. At one point, ma'am, maybe you can just switch to the YouTube page. Hi, I'm really excited to be here. This is a great crowd, and I really enjoyed hearing the other panelists so far. So I'm here today to talk about Lead Now and our campaign during the election, but also kind of how we got to where we were. And a lot of that comes from several years of doing youth organizing across Canada on a variety of issues. And do you guys remember the 2008 federal election? So that was the first time Harper got in with a minority government. So a couple of us were kind of really disheartened with that result and had looked at the math, and 62% of Canadians didn't vote for Harper and voted for parties that had shared values around the environment, around different more progressive values than Stephen Harper. So we kind of did the math and launched this like really grassroots website called Canadians for a Progressive Coalition with like a petition on it. And we had this little video we put up that was just like going through the numbers of the elections of how many people actually voted for Harper. And we started doing phone calling on a weekly basis to people's MLAs and MPs and riding associations, asking them to support a coalition government. And all of a sudden, within 2 weeks, things got really big because Stephen, Dion, and Jacqueline actually started talking about having a coalition government. And then all of a sudden, this group of 3 of us in Victoria were the media go-to people on this issue of a coalition government, which was a little crazy, like thinking that like 3 university students in Victoria were being the voice on this national issue, and there wasn't any other groups that could kind of step up into that. So we had people like the Council of Canadians coming to us, the Rideau Centre, like big groups in Ottawa that didn't have any, the trade unions who didn't have any capacity to respond quickly to this thing that was coming up. So that was really interesting. Fast forward a year later to the Copenhagen climate talks. And several of the people involved with Lead Now were all working together on mobilizing in those before Copenhagen, and several of us were actually there. And I always get emotional thinking about Copenhagen because it was a really depressing moment when you're thinking about Canada, when you're thinking about our role in the world addressing this critical issue. So we went to Copenhagen, it failed, and a lot of that was Canada, and we were pretty demoralized. And it's actually funny how many people involved with that are still burnt out now. But that's another issue that all of us activists have to deal with. So after that, a lot of us were talking about how we need a different approach, and it's no longer working to do issue-specific campaigning, and what we need to do is change our politics. And part of that is changing the parties involved, but that's also changing how we engage in politics. And a lot of those big issues around voter turnout and apathy, and how our politicians are actually engaging in social issues were kind of the big picture issues that Lead Now came into wanting to organize. So we had this big challenge that we wanted to kind of take on and looked around to see what other people were doing around the world. So we connected with MoveOn.org in the States and Get Up in Australia and Avaz, and started having all these conversations about the need for an organization in Canada to do rapid response campaigning, like we were able to do around Copenhagen and we were able to do around the Canadians for Progressive Coalition thing, and decided to launch Lead Now last January. What we didn't know when we were launching Lead Now that a month later there would be a federal election called. Great timing. That was fun. So when when we started building leadnow, we came into it with a couple things, and the first one was a lot of social networks on the ground. So because we have been doing national organizing for several years, we had an extensive network on campuses, and we had an extensive network with allied organizations like the Sarah Youth Coalition, a lot of trade unions, things like that. So we came with it with a lot of connections that we were able to kind of turn on to tap into our online organizing. The second thing we kind of came, which I think made us a lot different than organizations like Move On, is a lot of us have been involved with participatory decision-making processes. So building, like at our universities, we have been done collective planning processes around sustainability. So we wanted to bring that approach to be able to design an organization that instead of us telling people what we wanted to do, having people tell us what they think we should be doing and what they think government should be working on. So we designed this process that was both organized online and in communities where we were getting people together to talk about what they wanted their politicians to be working on. And the idea is that we were going to be drafting a campaign platform that we would then pressure politicians to sign up for, to kind of influence them before the election. But the election happened too fast. They messed up all of our great planning. And one of those things is kind of that was a great lesson that we've really brought forward in leadnow, is that you never really know what's going to happen when you're doing social change work, and you just have to be prepared to respond. So we've really built ourselves as an organization that can respond quickly to things that are coming up. And a lot of that's like anticipating what's going to be big, whether that's right now we're doing a lot of work around the omnibus crime bill, but a lot of that's just responding quickly when things come up. So we had this grand plan during the election that we're going to draft this, we called it the Declaration for Change, which was built out around the participation, probably about 5,000 people in meetings face-to-face, and probably another 15,000 people voting online for their shared values. So we drafted this Declaration of Change, and that was going to be the thing we're going to do. We're going to get our politicians to sign on and get people to sign on and take that on. That didn't quite happen. So one of the things that happened is one of our good friends at the University of Guelph did this thing called a vote mob, which was a tactic we had used a lot leading up into Copenhagen, where people were filming fun, flashy YouTube videos where they were doing songs and dancing. The first one was actually a strip mob at the University of Guelph, where they were singing the song "It's Getting Hot in Here," which is the climate change anthem, and on their campus, on their cafeteria. And it was just kind of a silly thing. They're all in their bathing suits. So that was the first one, and then they decided they wanted to do this in the election in response to Rick Mercer's rant around youth engagement. So we saw Guelph do that and take it on. And do you just want to flip to the YouTube page? We saw this amazing thing that because we had contacts in universities all over the country already, we were able to get universities to respond quickly. So we had, I think, almost 50 different universities do these vote mobs. And there was a lot of interest around that. So it was this fun thing where different communities were challenging each other. I helped with the University of Victoria one, which was kind of super fun to do. I was like feeling like I'm a star. No, I'm not actually going to show it, but if you just scroll down, you can see like there's just a lot of schools participated in them, which was pretty exciting to see the fact that in this election where people were saying people didn't care and people weren't going to be interested and it was going to be an unremarkable election, you had all of these young people stepping up and being like, we are going to vote, we're going to get to the polls. And I think that's something that sure shocked the hell out of the media, and I think politicians as well, because they weren't anticipating that kind of thing. So we were able to first recognize that this was going to be a trend, and it also tied into the media narrative that was going on at the time around the Arab Spring and youth mobilizing in the Middle East, and the media really wanted to cover the youth angle. So we were able to shape this campaign around a media narrative that helped us get national media coverage, and also helped redefine how the media was talking about the election. And it also got the politicians to respond. So Guelph, which was the starter of the vote mob movement, actually had their advanced polling station on campus shut down, and the Harper government tried to take away the votes that had been cast. And that was really interesting, because when that happened, that was like one of the first big pushes for our list. So one of the things about the leadnow model is we're all about list building. So creating a really big email list that we can get people to respond to quickly. And a lot of that growth depends on finding an issue that people care enough about to share with their friends. And the people, like the Guelph vote stealing, Harper tried to discount them was that first opportunity where people kind of were like really pissed off about that and sent the petition around everywhere. So that was, it was interesting because we didn't anticipate that at all and we had to respond quickly. So, that's kind of one of, I think, the main things about this organizing model that leadnow does, is having to, so a lot of anticipation. We call it crisis-opportunities. So like you never know what the crisis is going to be, which is going to be the next major opportunity to mobilize people. And this is very typified by the other day I was going to New York for like my first vacation ever. And I got a call when I'm heading onto the airport being like, Tria, you hear that they're going to try to shut down the Occupy protests in New York? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, do you know it's a Canadian company? And I was like, no. Do you want to be there at 6 o'clock in the morning tomorrow, even though you're getting in at like 1 o'clock at the airport, and be there with a sign saying this many Canadians are against this eviction? So within 8 hours between the time I left the airport and I landed, over 9,000 Canadians had signed a petition about that just overnight. And so I was able to be there that morning at the protest at 6 o'clock defending Wall Street, the activists there, with a sign, a giant sign saying this many Canadians have signed this petition. And like there's no way you could have anticipated that I would happen to be going to New York. No way. So it's just about timing, and you don't know what those moments are going to be, but I think what's really unique about this model and what's really needed is it creates a platform where you can do that and respond quickly and get. Our list now is, our email list is up to 60,000 people since January. Our Facebook has about 8,000 folks on it. Our Twitter following is around 4,000. And all of that has been built by people sharing email lists, liking things, that type of thing. And I think one of the really interesting things about leadnow is that only part of what we do is online organizing. And the thing that most makes it the most effective is offline connections. So the things like the vote moms, where people are actually getting on the ground and doing something together, and that they can see that they're involved with something. And one of the feedback we get the most that I find really interesting is that people like seeing that they're part of something bigger. So an organization like leadnow that can respond quickly has also been able to create a lot of capacity and buy-in in a community, because it's connecting people and making them feel like they're part of a movement to get rid of Stephen Harper, which I'm pretty sure we all want to do. Right?
Yeah, can we just give a bigger round of applause for everyone